What's your take 4 or 5 days on from the budget? I mean, ultimately, markets are calm. Labour MPs seem to be calm too. In the short term, at least, is it job done by the government?
Well, I think in terms of the impact on the markets, and many economists have commented on this, it's really about, can she really deliver those sort of series of tax rises? Much harder to do in terms of delivery. So that's a wait and see. I think the real problem for the Chancellor is one of political credibility. I don't think she does politics very well. You know, I watched her interviews over the weekend. She looked uncomfortable. At times, she looks just spooked and slightly haunted about, the way she has handled the sort of, November month in total. And I think both the regulator and, of course, Laurie Magnus, the person in charge of the conduct of ministers, are now looking at whether she misled the markets. That's a bad place to be for a chancellor. One of the first lessons you learn when you walk into the Treasury, and to my colleague Kwasi Kwarteng's great pain, is every utterances that the Chancellor utters can move markets. And you have to be so responsible and careful about what you say, not to mislead markets. And that, I think, is going to be her problem this week and ongoing. Is the moment people look into what happened at her speech early in November, and then, of course, later on in the middle of November, the Treasury briefings about the 20 billion black hole that didn't exist. She was told about this in October, not even in November. So I think her bigger problem is credibility, which will then, of course, manifest itself on the PM, because he's going to try and go out and say, we are serious about cutting or at least reducing the speed of the rise of welfare budgets today. Do people believe him when he couldn't get his welfare cuts in place, about 5 billion they had to U-turn on? It's all about political credibility now for both the Chancellor and the Prime Minister.
I had a question, Nadhim, for you about how politically tied a Chancellor is to the Prime Minister. Either way, we expect the Prime Minister sort of double down on his backing for Rachel Reeves today. You have a particular experience of this, of course, because I guess your time in number 11 was very short, because once Boris Johnson lost Rishi Sunak as Chancellor, and there was a lot of factors going on at play there. Of course, his time was almost up. I mean, do you think if Rachel Reeves were to go for whatever reason, and it doesn't look likely in the short term, that would be curtains for the Prime Minister as well?
It would be difficult. So I was a sort of caretaker Chancellor in many ways, because within about a day of taking office, the Prime Minister announced he was stepping down. But we got through a load of stuff. We signed off some of the nuclear investment. We did ARIA, which was in a perilous place when I came in to the Treasury. Look, ultimately, and you saw it with Kwasi. I remember I was Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster when he was Chancellor and then was sacked. The first thing he said to me is, she can sack me, but it's not going to stop there. It will end at her desk. And I think this feels different but similar in the sense that Rachel's problem is the Prime Minister's problem. It's all about, he knew about the non-existent black hole. He knew that there was a surplus of about 4 billion, yet he approved that sort of morning speech, which looked like we were going to get 2p on income tax, and the markets then reacted to that. Of course, then the U-turn came later in the month. The markets reacted again. That is very, very serious. And I think the Chancellor would be well advised to come out today, if there is an urgent question, or at some point this week, and actually be much clearer to say, look, I took some political decisions. I took them for good reason. I apologize if there was any way that I misled the markets or Parliament, and just draw a line. Do you remember when they used to force Boris to come to the dispatch box to have to effectively, you know, explain what was happening during COVID. And, you know, the constant sort of attack on Boris was, did you really tell the truth to Parliament? Where are we on, you know, lockdowns, all that sort of stuff. And I think if she is serious about wanting to survive, she needs to come forward and actually just put her hands up. And rather than sort of obfuscate and say, we're asking people to pay a little more, they're not asking us to pay a little bit more. They're forcing us to pay a lot more. You know, we had 40 billion in the last budget, another almost 30 billion now, for political reasons. She felt that she needed to sort of satisfy the hard left of her party in Parliament, and that's why she did it. Now, she can explain it and say, this is my strategy, this is why I did it, but don't try and keep, you know, hiding and obfuscating and saying, well, I didn't really do this. Because the moment Laurie Magnus looks at this, which I think he will, the moment the regulator looks at this, they will see that the OBR had actually given her all the data that she needed. She didn't need to do this. And I think she needs to come clean about it very quickly to survive.